Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of that thing we call Tilt Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, and of course, being live with us on YouTube is the best way to interact with the show. You become a full-fledged member of the show, and your comments, questions, concerns, all that stuff come in real time, just like Chris Ferraro here saying, waiting on John, and Ibby. Wait is over, my friends. John Sapanaro out here in Los Angeles, California. My co-host, Matt Ibby Ibanez, holding it down back in New Jersey. Ibby, we have a jam-packed show. Oof. Lots to talk about with our New York Mets. They made a lot of news today. We also have a great guest, one that we've both been trying to get on for a while. So before we do that, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, John. I thought the tone of this show was going to be a lot different before the news dropped this morning. Granted, I'm pretty sure the overall tone is still going to be relatively close to what I thought it would be, but Absolutely. At least there's some good mixed in. But it also comes with a little bit of controversy because we just saw the lineup drop that we all know we love talking lineups just like everybody else does. So that's going to be a talking point because I saw you had some thoughts. I have some thoughts on it. I'm sure our guest has some thoughts on it. So it's going to be an interesting show, jam-packed like you said. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Look, Chris Ferraro right out of the gate. Tommy Pham, get the fuck out of the fifth spot,
I am
please.
with you, Chris.
Listen, I never talk about lineups. I tell people not to talk about lineups, but today
I agree.
We are going to talk a little bit about the lineup. So let's bring in our guest. Like I said, somebody we both wanted to talk to on this show for a while, former Mets prospect, pride of Huntington, Long Island, and I think the only person that talks more shit to Mets Twitter than I do, the one and only John Mincone. John,
hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me.
Listen,
thank you for coming on, John.
Thanks for doing it. Absolute pleasure to have you on. People have been clamoring for this for a while, and we got Douglas Barnes saying, "Hope the guest doesn't suck."
I do. I apologize in advance. I do.
Oh my God.
Listen, this was sort of the topic that we talked about last week a lot, but I want to get your thoughts on it just as this overarching view, because you and I and Ibby kind of have a similar viewpoint on this team, on this season. Baseball takes a long time. It's 162 games. There's 73% of the season left. It is May 17th. People are ready to write off this team as if they've never watched baseball before. So just give me your overarching view on the Mets so far.
I mean, it's a disappointment. It's got to be for them. I know it is for all the fans. As far as the season being over stuff, that's Mets Twitter. I love it. It happens every single year, whether they're in first place by 10 games. It was happening last year. As soon as they lost a game, it was over. The season so far has just been a struggle, I guess. It's tough to watch. But
look, I agree with you. I think everybody
100%.
sitting here is going to say, look, this is disappointing. I'm frustrated. The Mets look listless. I don't want to watch this kind of baseball. I don't want to watch that game. I gave up, towards the end. I was like, all right, I'll go take a shower and I'll move on with the rest of my day.
Yep.
But I think there's a difference between that and saying, hey, I don't agree with some of these moves, and the other stuff that we hear from Mets Twitter, which is fire Buck Showalter, fire Billy Epler. I mean, John, you can't, no good organization fires a manager for 101 wins season before Memorial Day.
It's insane. And look, the pitching has been terrible. The starting pitching has been awful. They're behind in every single game. I mean, you can't win games if you're behind every day. So that's Buck's not out there giving up. Like, listen, it's part of the game. It's an unfortunate stretch they're in right now. Look, the Braves last year. Braves started like that. They were terrible. Phillies were terrible, and it's a long season. It takes time, and especially a team that had 101 wins last year, to find a groove. It's okay.
I agree with all that. I mean, Ibby, I wasn't sure we were going to start in this place, but I think based on what John just said, and also, the fact that John is a left-handed pitcher, I think we should go to the left-handed pitcher first and talk about David Peterson, who gets sent down. John, look, you've been very vocal on Twitter about, your work with other pitchers out on Long Island, most notably Matt Harvey over the last several months. So when we look at these numbers from David Peterson, that is about as ugly as it gets. I tweeted 808s and heartbreak in honor of his ERA. It's real bad. 35 earned runs in 39 innings. That whip is ugly. Just as somebody who pitched at a high level, what's wrong with David Peterson, who had such a great spring training?
To me, at least, his mechanics appear to change a little bit. And I tweeted within a couple pitches each time he started. And if his arm action's clean and shorter and he's up on time, he's had, I mean, I'm not going to say he's had great starts this year, but he's had decent ones. A couple starts ago, I think he went into the 6 or something before he really gave up anything. His mechanics looked better. He had a shorter arm action in the spring. And it seems like he's been stressed and tested this year and kind of defaulted back into his comfort, which is a longer, loopier arm action, which he just can't get on time with the ball. In my opinion, just what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. I mean, look, you've
Absolutely.
pitched at a higher level than me or Ibby or pretty much anybody in our comments and stuff like that. So
he just looks he's not delivering the ball on time. Even his strikes aren't quality strikes. He's missing not even quadrants. He's missing halves of the plate sometimes. So it's hard to pitch that way in the big leagues.
Yeah, it seems like a recipe for disaster. Yeah. I mean, Ibby, just from our perspective, look, you've liked Peterson more than I have, admittedly. I've kind of said he reminds me of Matz. He reminds me of John Neese, somebody who, and it's not to put those guys down either, but, guys who should have been better based on stuff and kind of never put it together. You've liked him. I mean, look, he has not been a major league pitcher this season to this point. So sending him down was pretty much mandatory. But, you had some pretty bold predictions on Peterson to start the year. So, when you look at these numbers, how do you feel?
Not good. I feel like an idiot. I feel like an idiot based off of my potential with my predictions. But again, I was going.
It was bold. I'll give you that.
It was bold. Yeah, but it was bold.
He had a good year last year. He was good last year.
He was serviceable last year. He was solid. And then coming into the spring, and then I was going off of a lot of stuff that you were saying too, John, talking about the shorter arm action during the spring and how everything was cleaner. He looked awesome. And I thought maybe we can finally put everything together. And look, were my expectations lofty when you look at what he's doing right now? Yeah, they were lofty. I said he would have like 12 wins. He would pitch to a 3.5 ERA. It's like, I thought that they were attainable things.
Yeah, he looked
based on the way it's going, it's not even like he's not a major league pitcher right now. He can't be here because it's clear that, obviously he gets sent down. McGill's pitched better. Granted, McGill's had his ups and downs, but I'd much rather see McGill out there fighting through 5 as opposed to Peterson trying to fight through 5. And the crazy thing, I always bring this up, John, is like he goes out there and he gives up all these runs, but you're still seeing like the strikeouts are still solid. The chase rate is still solid, but so the swing and miss is there, but he's, like you said, he's getting too much play. He's just getting knocked around.
Yeah, he's missing in just bad spots. Again, his slider was, I think, one of the best in baseball last year. From that standpoint, and it's a great pitch again when he's on time. He's not off every single time. He's still getting 0-2 pitches, but he's just majority of the game missing in the wrong spots. And that he'll get hurt in AAA. He's not missing by an inch here or there. He's missing sides of the plate, so he'll get hurt there if it's not cleaned up also.
Well, I don't remember his exact numbers, but when they sent him down, and he had those, I think, 2 starts down in AAA before he had to come back up with the max stuff and everything that happened over the last couple of weeks, he did not do great in his AAA stint. So whatever is failing him mechanically seems to be, like you said, catastrophically failing him mechanically. So, John, do you think there's a path when a guy loses his way this badly? Do you think there's a path back within a season where he can right the ship, or is this like a hard reset and like, hey, we'll see you in spring training next year?
It depends on how good he is at recognizing that he, sometimes these guys have to be like, okay, I suck right now and I need to make a change. It's, nobody wants to go through this stuff, and it's not easy to make mechanical changes in season. But he's made them. We've seen it in the spring. It was something they were working on that he just loses sometimes. And he really has to make the mental effort, the mental note to keep himself there, even when he's, struggling, when he's not doing well. But I think a lot of that struggle will take care of itself if he does it. But he's got to recognize that it's something that it's time to do. Otherwise, he's going to lose not just the season, he's going to lose, the next few years if he can't figure it out.
Right. I'm going to jump back to the comments real quick. Chris Ferraro, who's been commenting a lot, says, I'll own it. I thought Peterson deserved a chance this time around. And look, he pitched like he did. He earned that chance. He just fumbled the bag after the fact. Patty in NYC saying, I also thought Peterson would do well. John Arias saying Peterson will end up with the Dodgers and win a Cy Young.
I can see that too.
Yeah, honestly, it's hard.
Yeah.
Or the Rays, the Astros,
somebody who knows how to fix pitchers, apparently. That said, it looks like Cookie is coming back on Friday. He's a guy who, when he was pitching here to start the year, also did not look good. But then the bone chips thing in the elbow, John, makes you think maybe he was trying to pitch through that. His rehab starts have both looked pretty good. So do you think we can get, the Cookie Carrasco that we saw last year, who was a very good major league pitcher, especially in the 5?
Yeah. So I have some experience with this. In 2013, I actually threw the entire season with bone spurs and scar tissue built up, and it wasn't anything that, at the time I was in Brooklyn, they were like, just pitch through it. If it's painful, it's fine. We'll fix it after the season. I was fine the whole year. My velocity was down 4 or 5 miles an hour. I wasn't getting spin, the right spin on everything. So that definitely affects you. Bone spurs, that kind of stuff. It feels like you might tear something when you're throwing it. It's not really going to affect it, but it definitely it affects spin. It affects hand grip. It affects all the stuff that a pitcher needs to manipulate the ball. So I think, I'm hoping if he's feeling good and all that stuff's taken care of, he should be free and clear and no pain. As soon as they were done, it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, the Mets just need to, you could say what you want about the lineups week, day in, day out, the call-ups, and we'll get to the Vientos stuff here in a second. But, Ibby, the Mets just need some stability in the rotation. And, with Max and Verlander back now, and Verlander did not have a great start yesterday, obviously, but with those two guys back, they need to be those guys. They need to be who they're supposed to be. And then the other guys need to start to kind of file in behind them. We need the good Senga more than we get the inconsistent Senga. We need Cookie back. We need Quintana back. I mean, right now, McGill and Peterson aren't getting it done. So with, Peterson to a greater extent, but, we need these guys back. And I think we need Cookie, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you said, finding that consistency, needing that stability, because as we've watched and we've seen, the fact that this starting rotation is pitching to a near 6 ERA, which is, again, like what John said before, when you're starting behind every single game and the way that this offense is going, you're pressing so much, finding that consistency is key. And I saw a stat before talking about how I think between all the innings that JV and Max pitched last year, they gave up a total of, call it, 20-something home runs across all of their innings last year. And now half of those, they're already at 10 at this point. So it's like you need them to get right, to get things proper. And another one that I bring up, as always, Matthew Brownstein, in their first 43 games of last season, Mets starting pitchers tossed 234 innings, 234.1 innings. First 43 games of this season, they've tossed 207.2 innings. So less to this point. And also a huge difference in the run difference, like what they're giving up. So it's like, as much as we are upset, a lot of people are upset when it comes to this offense. It starts with the pitching. You have to be able to you can't allow teams to come up to a 3-0 start every single game. And that's what it feels like. You tune into the game, and I know we joke about every time we tweet, you tune into a game, it's like first inning, 1-0, third inning, 4-0. Like, what the hell's going on? And again, it's frustrating to us, and I guarantee you it's frustrating to the guys playing offense, where every single day you're like, all right, we really got to come out firing here. We're not getting much help from the arms.
I agree completely with that. A couple of really good questions coming in, John, for you, again, as somebody who has pitched. Chris saying, curious to know what you thought of Verlander last night, his performance, because the postgame show thought he actually wasn't bad. The Rays hitters were just good. Did you kind of see that from your perspective?
I mean, he hung the curveball. That was the biggest damage.
Right.
Again, mistake pitches are going to happen. And and he's the guy that throws curveballs up in the zone. He just kind of threw it in a weird spot, that pitch. They're the best team in baseball right now. Their hitters are hitting the crap out of the ball. They're going to hit mistakes. The rest of the game, was it that bad? No. Again, a lot of people see, he gave up runs. We have the loss. He's getting his ass kicked. He's not necessarily throwing a bad game. If he got beat on 3 or 4, 1 or 2 bad pitches and a few good pitches, that happens sometimes. It's just right now, it's so high stress with the Mets that if they were in first place by 6 games, nobody says anything about it.
Yeah, people would just look at this and go, it's a bummer. Verlander didn't have it.
Whatever. He hung a pitch and that's it. That's it's a bad day.
Right. This is a sort of a follow-up. It's a tangent of that last question, but it's also a great one from Chris saying, what toll does the pitch clock have, if any, on Justin Verlander and Max's performance? I mean, they're guys who work quick, over the course of their career, but knowing that they have to work quick is different than just being a natural worker on your own time. So obviously you've never pitched with the pitch clock, but do you think it affects guys?
We pitched with I don't know if it was an in-between inning clock. Like when I was in Double A, there was or the Ducks maybe there was some kind of pitch clock that I had to deal with. But it was much longer than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen Max. How many times have we seen Max with catchers that aren't, even with Nito, who he loved throwing to, catchers that aren't on page with him that day? He starts, he's getting frustrated. He likes his own pace. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't. I would imagine even if his pace was kind of quicker than this, him feeling like he's on somebody else's time might bug him. But again, he's Max Scherzer. He needs to get over that. Both of them do. Even if it affects them physically, like they got to figure it out. Otherwise, that's what they're getting paid to do.
Yeah. No, listen.
What the game is now.
Yeah. I obviously agree wholeheartedly. I mean, guys get paid a lot of money, whether you like the pitch clock, hate the pitch clock, think 2-hour games are good, 3-hour games are better. Who cares? Yep. The guys who are out there have to perform, especially when they're veterans and they're paid at a very high price tag to perform because there's expectations that come with it. I always say the amount of money that a player makes is irrelevant to their performance unless they are completely unplayable, a la a guy like Chris Davis in Baltimore a few years ago, where, if he's making $30 million a year and he's hitting, 110, obviously that's a problem. After that, guys get paid what they get paid, but the expectation is that Scherzer's got to be Scherzer. It doesn't matter if he has 20 seconds to throw or 28 seconds to throw.
Yeah, and he had spring training and how many starts this year so far? Like it's got to, if it is still, I don't know if it's still bothering me. It could be the health stuff. It could, I know a lot of stuff's happened, but if that is still a reason, he's got to move on with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
In the spirit of moving on, let's talk about the hot topic of today, which is Mark Vientos. He's finally here. He is finally here. And before I say anything else, I just want to say to everybody watching, everybody who's going to listen tomorrow, everybody who's going to watch this back, Mark Vientos is good. Mark Vientos is not a savior. Do not get after this guy. Everybody wanted him. To a man, every single person on Mets Twitter, call up the kids, call up the rest of them. Who cares if they're ready? They're going to be better than Tommy Pham. I heard it all. I read it all. If he hits 150 over the first 2 weeks, I don't want to hear that you're tired of Mark Vientos. I just want to be clear on that. But that said, Ibby, come to you first and then to John. Those numbers are insane. Slash line of 333, 416, 688, 13 home runs, 37 RBIs, and 1104 OPS. I mean, it was a matter of when, not if, with Vientos with those numbers. I mean, that's gross.
And look, you bring numbers, I have to bring mine as well because they are ridiculous. You look at the whole left versus right versus left-handers. He only had 31 at bats, but his slash line 357, 419, 679. That in itself is ridiculous. But against righties, which people assume, he's not going to face righties. Against righties, he had a slash line of 327, 415, 690, and he had 11 home runs across 135 plate appearances. 150 games at the AAA level. He's hit 40 home runs with 113 RBIs. Like it's incredible. 942 OP. Like the numbers he's put up is ridiculous. But like you said, John, not a savior. Let him come in, let him assimilate. I have further thoughts once we get into the conversation about the lineup and stuff like that. But in terms of this call up, it was needed. It had to happen. Look, I'm going to go into more in terms of who's playing, where he's playing, all that nonsense. But in terms of him finally being up here, it's well-deserved. It's well-earned, especially coming off of the heels of what Billy Epler was talking about in spring as to why Brett Beatty was not here. It took more than, it took longer than it should have, but Vientos is here because he proved clearly over 150 game sample size that he dominated that AAA level. And the next progression is to come up. Now he's here. Let the kid play.
And Carlos Ramos saying, please do not put the pressure on Vientos. Please do not. I mean, John, I know this is something that you always talk about. And this is where you and I think are, usually in lockstep when it comes to, just evaluating a team from what we're seeing. My big thing the whole time was, does Vientos deserve to be up? He does, based on everything he's done. But most teams do not overhaul 4/9 of their lineup before Memorial Day weekend. And with Beatty coming up because of performance, Alvarez coming up because of need, that's already 2 guys. And then a week and a half later, people are like, it's got to be Mauricio. I don't care that he's played 30 games at AAA. It's got to be Vientos. Both guys, bring him here now. So, look, Vientos deserved it, but sometimes you do have to be careful what you wish for because, look, to Stevie Mack's point, now everybody's crying because they optioned Luis Guillorme to bring up Vientos.
You can't win.
You can't have it.
He was the only one with options left. He was unfortunately, I don't think it was the right, but he was the one that was going to go.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, Vientos obviously had to be here, but what's your thought process on how long they waited? Should it have been sooner, despite what I just said about, how your teams don't overhaul that much of their lineup the first 2 months in? Like, how do you feel about this?
I think it should have been sooner for a couple points. One, just where the Mets are right now and how they're doing. He's been up. It's not like this is his debut. And he was up in the middle of the stuff last year, which was, a intense time when the Mets were kind of sliding at the end. So I think, listen, when you have a guy hitting like that, and same with Mauricio, I mean, that's another story. But like when you have guys hitting like this, it's not, if you have all-stars, you're not moving all-stars for these guys, it's okay. But when you have the hitters that they have up there, what are we doing? Why are we not at least trying this? Other teams have success trying this stuff out.
Yeah.
What's the harm? Are they going to do worse?
Exactly.
No. What are we going to do? Lose more games?
Right.
Well, and that's what I've always said. I've tried to preach patience just from a perspective of, hey, if you're sitting there on Mets Twitter and you're adding Steve Cohen saying, bring up Vientos, first of all, he has no control over it. Second of all, most teams are not going to act this way. At the same time, does that mean that I don't want Vientos here? Of course I do. Look, you're talking about Tommy Pham and Mark Canha and, Eduardo Escobar, guys who have had different kinds of careers. Like Eduardo Escobar has had some big years. Mark Canha is basically a league average to slightly above league average player for his career. But like you said, John, they're not sitting all-stars. You're not sitting down prime Manny Ramirez for Mark Vientos.
Exactly. Right. And other teams do move stuff. I mean, look, Pena was a rookie last year, right? For the Astros?
Yep.
World Series MVP?
Yeah.
The teams that win do bring up, like, a lot of teams don't have the fortune, I guess, of having 4 prospects like the Mets have right now that they can bring up and talk about. So that's, another story. They have to win. But if you have to win this way and it's an option, it's at the point in the season without, being where the Mets are, it just makes no sense to not try.
I would agree with that. Look, go ahead, Abby.
No, I was just going to say, like, to continue a point that I made when we did our lead up episodes into the start of the season, when we were trying to predict, is Brett Beatty going to make this team? What players are going to get because they're red hot? And I had said, look, I think based off of how this team and the things that they were saying, I had a feeling that they were going to go very veteran heavy. I said I wanted Beatty to be here, but I expected the veterans to make the team because I thought they were going to give them a fair shake to see what they can still bring, and then they would make a call. In short order, 20 games, whatever it was, Beatty was up, and now here we are, 40-something games in, and now Vientos is up. And obviously circumstance because of Alvarez, but the whole point being they were going to give him a shot. So it's like you gave 40-plus games, and you're seeing the results that you're getting from these veteran players. There is no reason why you should not just try. And I'm going to parlay that into my whole thought process with this lineup too, and the apprehension it seems that this team tends to have in certain spots. But like, I think 40 games and the amount of at-bats that these veterans have gotten has been more than enough of a sample size to say, okay, let's see what the kids got. And if we give them a little bit of run and they prove their worth, now we got something cooking. Now we can utilize other assets to go get pitching later on or whatever it may be. I think that that's the proper approach. And I'm glad they finally realized that.
I agree. I actually changed end of last year into spring training this year. I was like, trade those guys, get whatever you need with them. Like, we have such a good lineup. We have such a good team right now. We don't need them for a few years. Like, we'll have other guys coming up. Now as the seasons, even though it's been short, has progressed, now I'm like, all right, we need to try these kids. Like, something needs to change. Yeah. We need energy. It's flat. Even if they don't produce for the first few games, the energy in the clubhouse changes when kids like this come up.
I agree. And
so
it's okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
you're good.
Kind of got cut off a little bit there on my feed, so I thought you were done. My bad. Yeah. We do have to adjust the other side of this, and Douglas Barnes brings it up. Who's the backup shortstop if Mauricio isn't coming too? And I think, in the short term, John, it's Eduardo Escobar. Yeah. He follows it up. Yeah. Douglas does by saying, is McNeil the backup shortstop? I mean, I don't think McNeil is the backup shortstop. I think McNeil could be an emergency shortstop for, the last inning of a game.
Needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could play third if needed and switch Escobar over.
Yeah, I think that's what you would have to do. Look, it's weird. It's a curious move. All morning long before they announced the Guillorme stuff, John, I thought they were going to find a phantom way to DL somebody because you can't the way Vogelback is hitting, and I know people don't like Vogelback, but to this point in the season, statistically, he's been the 4th or 5th best hitter on the team, depending on which metrics you use. So he doesn't deserve to get cut. That's the first thing.
No.
Tommy Pham, I know people don't like Tommy Pham. I know the batting average isn't great. He shouldn't be hitting 5th. I'll give everybody that. But he has hit the ball hard, and I don't think with the thinness in the outfield that he deserves to be cut today. The third person is Escobar. He makes the most money. We know money's not a factor with Cohen, but he's also been good since they've cut his role back, so he doesn't deserve to be cut today. So
he's been trending up.
Yeah, Guillorme is the odd man out, like you said, because of options. There's no other way to go today.
Yeah, it's weird because he would have been obviously the backup shortstop if anything happens. But listen, I guess if they need a shortstop, somebody else is coming up.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll have their shortstop.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't happen. He can come up play second base, but I'd love both of them up the middle. But they're just gonna have to figure it out. Whether it's Escobar playing, I highly doubt McNeil is going to be the guy to do it.
Yeah, I don't see that. Stephanie Giannetti joining. She said, "Did I miss a good John rant from either John?" No, I think so far.
I don't rant.
We've been pretty tame today. We've been pretty tame. We've been pretty okay today so far. So far. We got about 4 or 5 minutes before we need to head into the break. And coming out of the break, for everybody who's watching live, it's just a quick 10-second ad spot that we need for the audio version of the show. So don't think that we're going to go on some prolonged break. I promise it'll be quick, in and out. We'll be back talking Mets before you know it. Ibby, I'll come to you first, and then John, I'll get your thoughts on it. We've alluded to it a lot. Today's lineup is weird. I don't want to spend the entire second half talking about it, so let's address some of it here and now. Ibby, you said you had thoughts. You tweeted at me. You texted me privately. You said, I have thoughts. So I want to know what your thoughts are.
My thoughts are, when I first saw it, like a lot of people, I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, I looked at it and I go, it's like, what I was alluding to before was like this apprehension. It's like, if things were going proper and you made these moves, it might have come off more as a panic because you're doing something out of sorts. But because of the way things have been going, if you decide to just say, fuck it, let's shake it up, let's put the kids in, let's see what happens tonight. Okay. I understand what you were saying, John, in one of your tweets when you were saying how, there's no off day till Monday. It's, they're facing the lefties and stuff like that. It probably makes sense on paper from the analytics and all the numbers in that sense. I understand that. But I just wish just once, just if it was today, like you call up Vientos, we're talking about, a big talking point with him has always been he's not really a defender, all this stuff. So it's like, okay, you bring him up, let him play, let him be the DH. You got Beatty at third. Let's build this. Let's have the kids batting if you want to have them. Like, I don't know if you're gonna have them all back to back to back, or just just the fact that they would all be in the lineup together. I think it just sends out good vibes. Maybe they can produce, do something, and then you kickstart anything. But it's like you get Vientos, and they're like, okay, you get Vientos, but you don't get Beatty. But Beatty hit a home run last night. Yeah, but you don't get him. Okay, we're going to put Escobar at second. We're going to bench McNeil because, McNeil's got 2 hits, even though he's coming off with a slump, but we're going to bench him too. And we got Tommy Pham batting 5th. And it's like, why can't I just have, like, the numbers show Beatty can hit lefties. I don't want to hear that nonsense anymore. I'm tired of it. So I don't understand why there is just this, like, I don't know. Again, I know Carlos is in here. I'm sure he has his thoughts on Buck and the lineup and all that stuff. But I don't know if this is Buck saying, screw the kids, I'm going to bat these guys. I don't know if this is Epler in the analytics department saying, here's the lineup. This is what we think. But I don't complain about lineups. I just thought that this one was extremely weird based off of the circumstance with Vientos coming up and putting that third. Like, I thought it was very odd.
Yeah, John, listen, I promise we don't complain about lineups every week on the show, but this is one that I think
I don't ever, but what the hell? Like,
you can curse, it's fine, be real.
It's fine,
just my God. I don't get it. This is, I guess, what I say when, I understand analytics, but I hate them sometimes. I understand the need for them in the game and like making business decisions, but like that's too good. Teams have lineups. They don't have platoon guys facing left, like get hitters that can hit. Like we have some of the best hitting prospects in baseball. What the hell are we doing? Let them hit.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Stop playing on the piece of paper. It's not working. What's worked about this?
Right.
Last year didn't work. I mean, we had a great year last year, but it didn't take us far enough. This year, it's not doing anything. stop playing. I don't think Buck is making the final say. I feel like it's kind of an analytic department. They have numbers on what makes the most sense, and he has to go within reason with that. I feel like does he have a real like vendetta against young kids? I don't think so. Like he would play these kids. Like Buck wants
Twitter
to
would
win.
tell you otherwise.
Buck doesn't want to suck. I know,
right?
But like,
right, exactly. Yeah,
they don't see that. They say, oh, they suck. Like they're making stupid decisions. Like it's not all on Buck. Buck doesn't want to be out there losing every day. He's a baseball life guy. He hates losing. Every single person in that locker room hates losing.
Yes.
Right. They're just in a really shitty situation right now.
Yeah.
But having not those guys, McNeil and Beatty out of the lineup when Vientos gets called up tonight is why? Like the whole point of this is to spark energy into the city and the team and the crowd and the fans, and they just deadened it by the time it was released.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes when you're making a decision for the sake of making a decision, it's not great, right? Now, the Vientos stuff is different because he was tearing the cover off the ball, deserves to be called up anyway, deserves to be in the lineup because what's the point of calling him up if you don't put him in the lineup immediately, all that stuff. Right. So, but like you said, they spark everybody, right? We're sitting there, we lose a shitty game last night, everybody's upset. People wake up this morning, they hear Vientos is getting the call. People are excited because they think somebody that they don't like is going to get cut, like Tommy Pham or Vogelback or whatever. Then they decide to send down a fan favorite in Guillorme. That kind of takes a little bit of the wind out of the sails regardless. I'm not saying right, wrong, or whatever. But for some people, I know. That took a hit. And then all of a sudden they turn around. They put the lineup out and you're like, what am I looking at? What is this lineup? It's nonsense. And so I did tweet what I tweeted out where I tried to make sense of it, and I did say in the tweet that I would elaborate because I kind of went both ways on it. At first, I saw it, and I was like, no off day till Monday, left-handed pitcher going. I understand getting the righties in there. I'm not mad about it. Then I kind of sat down. I had some lunch. I thought about it. I put what I think should be the lineup moving forward. I was like, this will be the lineup going forward. And then I was like, no, this should be the lineup today because the Mets are rolling out a lineup today like they won 15-0 yesterday, like they're in first place, like vibes are good, or like the lefty that they're facing is Clayton Kershaw during one of his Cy Young years. I don't even know the guy who's on the mound today, and I know the Rays churn out pitchers like at random, and they all look like creative guys from MLB The Show, and they're all great. They all throw 97 miles an hour. They have wipeout breaking stuff with crazy spin rates, and then they blow their arms out in 2 years, and you never hear from them again. That's what happens with the Rays. That's what they do. I understand, so this guy's probably great, but Jeff McNeil won a batting title. I don't want to see him sitting against lefties. No, I don't want to see, I don't want to see Brett Beatty hit a home run, finally break out of his little semi-slump that he's been in, and then you sit him down.
And what's the plan for the future? You're not going to let him face lefties ever? Like, he's got to be an everyday third baseman. I never understood. Like, if you want this guy to be your future, what are we doing? What other people have this? Like, what other teams are doing this to guys that are supposed to be their future? Just being like, you don't have to face this guy. Like, face the dude. Face the lefty. You got to learn how to hit. You're going to be in a World Series game and face a lefty. I'm not like taking my best hitter out of the lineup because it's a lefty. What are we doing?
And again, you're talking about a guy who, look, in his situation, you got Escobar in there, and he's hit better since he's been in this diminished role. I understand that. But he's a guy who, for the better part of 2 years, outside of 1 6-week stretch at the end of last season, has been a bad Met, John. He's been bad, objectively bad. I think he's hitting 118 at one point this season, like 118 through 200 at bats. It's brutal. That is brutal. You can't hit 118. You can't hit 118.
No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't at 118.
Not in play over.
No, like I barely get. I think I might be able to hit 110. I think there's a chance that I can hit 110.
You can run into one hit.
Close your eyes and
But so to me, the lineup is confounding. Carlos saying
the timing
I feel
of it's just nuts.
John and Ibby are criticizing the lineup, and I'm too quiet. Twilight Zone type stuff. It's true.
It's true. It is.
I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about it other than that. Now,
well, it's also weird. Just one more thing. It's also weird with the Vientos stuff because everything that's been said to this point. And I'm not trying to say that this is a scouting department problem or anything like that, but it is weird to me how the defining factor for Francisco Alvarez was guy can't play defense. He's going to be terrible back there. and he's proven to be pretty damn solid to this point. Brett Beatty can't play third base. His lateral movement's not good. It's not going to work out, and he's top 10 right now in terms of defense. It's like he's doing a good job. And now you're going to tell me Mark
90th
Vientos,
percentile.
Right. And you're going to tell me Mark Vientos is a statue out there. He's lucky if he gets to play first base in the bigs. And now you're going to say, no, we're going to bench Beatty and we're going to play Vientos at third base. It's like, well, why? Like, why wouldn't you just DH him and let Beatty play third? I don't understand the thought process, because you've been feeding me this information and now you're going to go against that. Like, that's what I don't get.
Yeah, there's been a few people in the comments that have said things like, Tommy Pham is kind of like the next J.D. Davis, where he's hitting the ball hard, but it's not actually equating to anything. And people know that's going to get a rise out of me because I was not a big J.D. Davis fan. I've said, John, for a long time that J.D. Davis was rostered to do a few things: hit fastballs, hit lefties, hit for power, and drive in runs. And he did none of those things consistently. At one point, he was over 10 strikeouts with the bases loaded in a row.
Solid.
That's good. I don't even know how that's possible. Again, you want to talk
that
about
was a rough stretch.
blindfolded? Like, come on. So I get it. If you're saying, look, you're going to put Vientos in there and you're going to sit Beatty so that you could put Tommy Pham up, I understand the uproar. I do. Shay saying Vientos is going to be starting at catcher tomorrow.
Plus, Pham's hitting like what, $188? Is that? I think he's hitting something like that.
Something like that. But he got that eye surgery or whatever. Corrective lenses.
I just don't get the plan with what's the plan with Beatty and Vientos? Then are they going to flip flop based on lefty righty, or is one of them going to be an everyday third baseman and the other one going to DH? Like, what is? I don't get it right off the bat.
What worries me about that,
right
John,
off the bat,
right off the bat, they're doing that, and what worries me is because when they asked Buck about Vientos a couple days ago, he was talking about, he's getting better at third base, which is a good thing. And everyone's like, well, what are you so worried about third base for? We got Beatty playing there. He's playing well. Now this happens. It's like, holy shit, are they really going to try and platoon these two? I hope that's not the case. But when I hear that, and then
Beatty become a great third baseman, he needs the reps, he needs the innings, and he's getting he's so much better than he was last year.
Yes.
Yeah. I completely agree. Totally agree. Everybody in the comments is agreeing with us so far. Carson saying he said a lot of things. It was Carson who said a lot of things about J.D. Davis. So I want to give him a shout out here saying J.D. Davis never pulled the ball. Now he is, and he's succeeding. And Douglas Barnes saying, exit velo, bitches.
That's it. All about the exit velo.
It's all about exit velo.
All about exit velo. So let's head into the break real quick. Like I said before, quick 10-second spot that we need for the audio version of this show. We will be right back with another 20 minutes or so of Till Mets Do Us Part. John Sapanaro, Matt Ibanez, and our guest this week, John Mincone, will be right back. Yo, just like that, we are right back with Till Mets Do Us Part. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter like we are each and every single week. Watching on YouTube is the best way to interact with the show because your comments come in real time, just like Chris Ferraro saying, let Beatty live. But we understand that not everybody can do that all the time. As soon as we're done with the show, this broadcast will live forever on our YouTube channel, which is appropriately called Till Mets Do Us Part. Make sure that you subscribe, turn your notifications on so that you never, ever, ever miss an episode. And if you can't do any of that, it is all good because you can listen to the audio version of this show starting tomorrow morning, wherever it is you get your podcast. Carlos Ramos saying Ibby had a heel turn. He's mad, critiquing the lineup, not wearing a Mets hat anymore. Ibby is doing the NWO.
I saw your message before, Carlos. I didn't miss it, saying how I'm not wearing Mets hats these last couple episodes. Look, all the hats I wear are Met-centric. Again, Brooklyn. Last week I wore my Rumble Pony hat. I have all my hats here. They're all right in front of me. Don't worry. I still have Mets stuff. I still have all my things here. Don't worry. I'm not jumping off the cliff like many do on Mets Twitter. But I just I like mixing it up. Plus, when I get new hats, I like to break them in. So don't worry. Fair. I still have all my stuff.
That's fair.
I did something that I've never done before, which is wear apparel for a different team. This is a National Rugby Association. It's the National Rugby in Australia. This is the Parramatta Eels. And I was like, you know what? that's kind of how I'm feeling about the Mets right now.
Well,
I'm gonna
based
go
off last night's game, I
Rugby
wouldn't have blamed
fans.
you.
Yeah, just completely off the rails. Do I like rugby? No. Did I buy this at a Parramatta Eels game when I was in Australia? I did. So, I figured I'd wear it. Plus, it's warm here in Los Angeles today, and it's it's one of those breathable shirts. Anyway, John, before we get back into the conversation, people on Mets Twitter know you. They know where to find you and all that stuff. But in case they don't, if they're watching for the first time, you want to drop your social handles and all that fun stuff.
Oh, is it at Jay Mincone? How do I drop that? Do I type it in?
just say it. Yeah, I'll
At
put
Jay
it
Mincone.
We'll put it in. Yeah.
Put it in the chat.
I'll put it in the chat too. No,
nobody else needs to join. It's all right. Everybody that knows
the hilarious
me,
thing.
There's plenty.
The hilarious thing, just like talking Twitter and you drop this thing, no, don't bring anyone else in. Like I look at our show handle right now, and the fact that it says, oh, that John guy is on. I'm not gonna listen. I'm gonna pass. Like it's just saying that it's hilarious because like a lot of people enjoy John. John also has his detractors as well, and he goes at them just like my co-host.
So nice.
Both Johns over here. So I'm in between two of the hottest button people when it comes to Twitter, and I try my best to either de-escalate or just fucking sign off. But I do appreciate how you guys. I do appreciate how you guys, have a lot more courage than I do to dive into the mud at times and handle your business.
Sometimes you got to get your hands dirty. Sometimes you got to stick them into the muck. What's that line from The Dark Knight Rises? You got to stick your hands into the muck.
That's it.
Whatever Commissioner Gordon says. I do have to give a shout out. He's not in the chat today, but Ant Rivera from Subway to Shea, another great show, another great podcast. He's been sending me stuff that he knows is going to piss me off in DMs on Twitter.
Does the same thing to me.
And then I just go and react to them. I think he sends them to you so that you don't do anything about it. And then he sends them to me. And I'm like, oh, now I got to argue with somebody for 15 minutes.
Yes. Well, he was sending me tweets from that Danny Alba, whatever that guy from SNY. He's sending me his tweets, and I blocked him. And I was like, I blocked him, dude. I'm not looking at these fucking tweets. Yeah. I already blocked them.
John, what? Look, obviously, Mets Twitter is it's a wild place. But it's a fun place. When it's going well, it's great. People always pick on stuff. You're very involved in it. Carlos saying it. I was going to bring this up. The best is watching Mincone versus Blooper. It is
my son.
So what's your take? What's your take on Mets Twitter? How much do you enjoy the exchange, even when it gets dumb?
A lot of it's dumb. I mean, a lot of great people. I wouldn't say. I mean, there is a lot of dumb Mets Twitter too. I mean, it's other fan bases that bring that stuff in, but on the whole, it's just fun. Whether people are trying to mess with whatever it is, it's Twitter.
Yeah.
it's just a lot of fun. I love interacting with people. People always are like, "Oh, you respond to everybody." I'm like, it's social media. If I wasn't trying to be social, I would not be on Twitter. That's the point, right? We're talking. It's conversations. Yeah. If anybody else has time, I have time for it. It's all right.
I feel the same way. Sometimes people are like, man, you got to calm down. Don't let it get under your skin. I'm like, it's not under my skin. I do it when I have the time. When I don't have the time, my phone's on do not disturb. I'm watching a movie. I'm playing softball. I'm living my life.
That's my favorite when people are like, oh, I'm on, you're mad. I'm like, It's like, I don't think so. That's not how mad goes. I'm in my backyard or doing something, hanging out on my phone. I was like, I'm okay. I'm just messing around.
Yeah,
but it is a wild play. I mean, it's a great place. Very smart people. A lot of people that are there for actual conversations about baseball and want to learn or want to just discuss things. Mm-hmm. And then you're always going to have, I guess, the back half of this, people like me who troll. No. half of me that has to deal with them. But no, it is a wild place.
I love this this comment from James Dowling just saying great vibe this show. I think it is, honestly. I think it's been a lot of fun to kind of be serious but also joke around because it's been a little bit of a dark turn here for the Mets through the first 40 or so games. So I appreciate that. And Chris Ferraro saying something I always forget to say, like the video, hit the thumbs up button so that it helps the algorithm do whatever the algorithm overlords are going to do. So somebody dropped a comment earlier and I missed it. So I apologize for not giving the person the proper due. If they want to reiterate it after I say it, they can. But they did say, please don't call up Gary Sanchez. And John, I think that person's about to be disappointed because I think Gary Sanchez is going to be coming up in the next few days.
I think he will. He has the option to leave right in a few days if he's.
I think it's on Friday.
Friday,
19th, yeah.
He's going to be up. And listen,
he's going to be up
again. Why the hell not? How many times have you seen guys struggle? Look at JD. You change scenery. You come, even though it's New York again. He's back in New York. a different clubhouse, different vibe, whatever it is, different stadium. Somebody just figures it out. It happens. It happens a lot. A lot of people struggle, leave, go somewhere else, and they're there. So why not give the shot to somebody who had, seasons like he had at some point? I don't want it to happen, but at this point, why not?
Well, look, he's not going to, again, we're talking about him taking away the job, maybe potentially from somebody who it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not disparaging anybody's major league career, but Michael Perez, stop.
No, yeah, right.
Gary Sanchez, I know he's not this player anymore, but he had 40 home runs in a season.
But he has the potential to.
Yeah, I mean, he hit like 208 or 198 or something dumb last year. He still hit 16 home runs. Where would 16 home runs have ranked on the Mets last season? Third.
Yeah.
Third. Or tied for third, because I remember I said Tommy Pham had 17 last year, and that would have been third. We had a couple people hit 16, so he would have been tied
for third.
Tied for third when it comes to home runs. Look, the guy is not good.
He's also 6 for 13. I know it's a 2-week stretch, but he's hitting.
Our catchers aren't hitting much better than that anyway.
Right. He is what he is. You're not expecting him, again, like we always say, to not come up here and be a savior. We're not expecting him to come up and bat fourth, bat third. That's not the expectation. I don't want to see the guy behind the plate. I've seen enough of Gary Sanchez in my lifetime. I don't need to see him ever behind the plate. He would be here to get an opportunity for some swings, to create a little bit of offense, and act as an absolute emergency for Francisco Alvarez, and just basically ride out a spot until Narvaez is healthy. That's exactly what it is.
And not have an absolute hole for a pinch hitter later in the game.
No,
that's it.
He's going to strike out a ton, but the same people that said they never wanted to see Tomas Nido catch again for the Mets are now like, oh no, we don't want Gary Sanchez. Like, you don't want his 16 home runs from last year?
He'll strike out a ton, but he'll pop some in those situations where you're like, okay, nobody else would have done that we had on the bench. So that's what you need him for. It's a job. It has to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Carson saying, I'll send Gary an Uber right now. I need power more than I need my limbs at this point. Keith Blacknick over at the Queens Baseball Convention said, just signed on. How did you guys get Will Wheaton on the show? That is a great comment. And then saying, so we should bring John to the QBC. John, I think you should do the QBC. I think it would be a lot of fun.
I think you should, man. I think you should do it.
All right, why not?
There you go. That's a verbal contract.
That
counts.
Verbal. That counts.
That counts. Legally, that's all we can do. No, so
damn, you're recording this too.
Yeah, we're recording it. We can run it back. He said okay. I think with this comment from Keith was about Gary Sanchez, but it's also applicable to what we're talking about right now with John Mincone and the QBC. Throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. Why not try to get him out there?
Why not?
No, and then the other person we have to mention before we get out of here in a couple minutes is Ronnie Mauricio. He's the guy that people are going to keep on clamoring for. There are his numbers. They're excellent. They're slightly worse than Mark Vientos' numbers, John, but they're still pretty good. Add to the fact that he's got, 13 doubles. He also has 2 triples. He can play shortstop. He could be your backup there while playing second base. Ronnie Mauricio, though, only about 30 some odd games at AAA, so completely different from Vientos. If it was up to you, would you just call him up now and say, screw it?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay.
Not even, Again, who are we replacing there? McNeil can go play other positions. We need, he could play in the outfield. We need somebody there that could hit. He's playing better second base than he was at short in AAA. Yep. And small sample size or not, what else do you want him to do? And it's not like he started off at, 400s worked down. He went down to he was down a bit and climbed himself back up. he's hitting the shit out of everything. He's... Yeah. What else? I understand people are like, oh, he chases. Who gives a shit? Look at what he's doing. Who gives a shit if he's chasing balls, if he's hitting the crap out of everything else? I don't care about his chase rate. I care about the percentages he's getting on base and getting the ball in play.
Yeah. He had a 460-foot home run the other day.
He's picking balls off the ground. Guess who else did that? Vlad Sr. did that. A lot of people are bad ball hitters and had great major league careers. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's not, he's not whiffing at them. He's still hitting at a ridiculous pace. He's not striking out as much as he was. He's not walking a ton, but he's not striking out as much, as means he's making contact on the pitches.
Yeah, exactly.
And
he's being more selective. You could see his selectivity has gone up. It hasn't equated to walks, but he's hitting balls that he can hit. He's swinging at balls that he can hit.
I'd rather that than watching our guys look at strike 2 and 3 down the middle. Swing the damn bat. Listen, I'd rather somebody be aggressive than go down looking. You know, and he makes contact. If he was whiffing like crazy, I'd say, yeah, maybe he needs some more time. But he's not.
I think the biggest thing, and I was having some conversation with some friends this morning about it. I think with him, it's just like you said, it's the seasoning, and I think the main seasoning is just that he's played, I think, 16 games so far at second base. I think they're gonna let that ride out a little bit longer, just so the whole idea, because they're gonna the main talking point is always his profile as a hitter can get eaten alive at this next level because he does chase a lot. They can pick him apart. He doesn't walk. Like, that's always going to be the argument against him. And I understand it, but I also think that once he gets that seasoning, whatever that number is, like if we're at 16 games now, if they want 30 games and he's errorless at second base and he looks smooth, then yeah, I do think you will see him up, because I'm assuming he's going to continue to hit the shit out of the ball. Maybe he has his ups and downs or whatever, but look, he's proving to be a legit hitter. The question is, can he carry this type of profile at the next level? Well, the only way you're going to find that out is when you actually call him up. So I do think in time, and when I say time, it's more so not even so much from the hitting as I'm talking about now. I think it's more so they want to see him play a little bit more at second base. So when they call him up, it's not so much as figuring out at the plate as well as figuring out in the field. Okay. Now I say these things, but then again, the Mets will roll him out. You know, they'll roll out Mark Vientos at third base, and they say that he stinks, but then they play him at third base anyway. And then they do this whole back.
So
that's kind of where I am.
I don't think it's that big of an adjustment, him playing second base. As I said, he's playing a better second base than he is, than he was at short. I'm just looking at it the way, what are the floor right now on the guys that we have in the big leagues that are hitting like shit? Terrible.
Right.
If he comes, he doesn't need to be hitting 370 in the big leagues. He needs to hit 280 with 20 something, and pop the ball out and hit doubles and triples. That's what we need him for. He's not going to be a 360 hitter in the big leagues.
Yeah. Agreed.
And his floor, if his floor is the same, that's fine. His ceiling's a hell of a lot higher than the guys that are up there right now. So,
and I know
there's only one way to find out.
Yeah, and I know we've used this example before, and I said it when Javi Baez was part of this team, and John brought up a couple weeks ago as well. It's like the reason why we liked Javi Baez here was because the lineup that was around him allowed him to be what he was good at. Yes, he swung and missed a lot, but he was meant to swing for the fences. Like, that's his profile. Right. So you plug in a Ronnie Mauricio at some point and bat him 7th or 8th and just say, hey, go be a hitter. Like, just go out there and fucking swing. Like, if that's the case, and you don't care what those results end up being because you just say, go out there, we want you to hit, so be it. Like, and if the lineup around him allows him to be that, then yeah, he can be 100% fine. Like you said, he's not going to come up here and bat 300. It's never going to happen. He's not going to be an OBP machine. It's not going to happen.
No, that's that ground ball rate. Everybody's like, aside from the walk rate, they're like, oh, he hits a lot of ground balls. All right, so some of those hits will get taken away. Not all of them. Big league shortstops or infielders aren't that much outside of a handful of them better than AAA guys. They're all athletic. AAA players are freak athletes too. It's not like they just may not be hitting as well or may not be as consistent, but they're still getting to those balls.
Right.
So say a handful of those grounders are taken away. All right, so that brings him from 360 to 300. Then he chases a little bit more. I think anybody on Mets Twitter would take him hitting 280 with the rest of the production that's going to come along with that.
I mean, they would take him hitting,
find a way to bitch.
John, they would take him hitting 230. They would take him hitting 230 with the rest of the production that comes with. If he hit 230 and hit 17 home runs, that would be great because nobody that he's replacing is going to do that.
Yeah. And I think he's going to hit that anyway.
I agree with you. I think he hits the ball too hard. I think his focus on hitting balls that he knows he can hit has changed to the point where I think he would out hit that too. Carson saying you have to see what you have in Mauricio at this point. Chases don't matter because we have 200 guys on this team that don't chase. It's true.
That's true.
And I'm happy that Ibby brought up the Javi Baez thing. Look, my love for Javi Baez as a baseball player is well documented. I know he's a flawed player, but I think in the right situation, he can really succeed. There's a reason why he finished in the second for the MVP when he had guys like Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and Contreras hitting around him, and he could be Javi Baez. As soon as he signed with a team like Detroit, And it was like, oh, he's going to be your 3-hitter or he's going to be your 4-hitter.
Nope.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
He cannot be the centerpiece of your offense.
Nope.
He
No.
could
There's
be your
nobody's gonna throw a
5-hitter.
strike.
He could
Exactly.
be your 2-hitter, but there's nobody to protect him and there's nobody to rein him in. And people are wondering why he's been one of the worst offensive players in baseball this year. It's because the team is terrible. And he's just up there. He's just swinging at everything. He can't be Javi Baez. And I think there's a little bit of that Baez streak in Mauricio. I know I've said for weeks, you can't call up all these guys and overhaul your lineup before Memorial Day, but we're getting pretty close to Memorial Day. And I think Stevie Mack just said it here in the comments. I agree. He'll be up by the second week of June at the latest.
Yeah.
I stand by
He's
that.
not far off.
A couple more weeks at the absolute latest, and he's going to be here.
He's not far off.
Last two things I want to get into real quick. John, I want to throw this over to you. I thought this was kind of a BS comment. We love Todd Frazier here on this show. He wasn't here on this particular episode that I'm about to play, but we have a clip from the show that he's a part of, which is Foul Territory. I'm going to play it for everybody who didn't see it. You're going to be pissed off, I promise.
Well, you played with Lindor. Is he a leader? I'm going to repeat it again. All those veterans and no leadership. If everybody's a veteran there, you're kind of just under the assumption that everybody's taking care of their business and going about the things the right way, but you kind of need someone to be those bumper pins kind of on each side. If people start getting out of line a little bit, it helps keep people in order and in track and focus on the same thing. Everybody gets a little comfortable because there's all veterans and you don't really have to worry about what you're doing because it's like you can do no wrong. You kind of forget that little being on edge when you're a young guy and you're like, oh, I don't know if a veteran saw me or I shouldn't be doing this. You lose that kind of should I be doing the right thing mentality.
So, John, that's Jason Kipnis on Foul Territory. They talk to him about what's going wrong with the Mets. He mentions lack of leadership. They double down. They ask him about Lindor. He kind of says this passive-aggressive BS answer rather than putting his name on it and being like, Lindor's not a leader or whatever, which I at least would have respected. I think that's one of those things that old-school baseball people look at and they go, there's no leadership. I've been watching the Yankees since 1961, and there's no leadership on the – like, what does that mean?
He has no way of. First of all, he has no way of knowing that. If he,
No way of knowing.
What was Lindor when he played with 21? If you needed a 25-year-old kid to be your leader in a clubhouse with Corey Kluber and all these other guys that were on that team, that's a bigger problem. He was being a kid. He was coming up. That was his role at the time. His role's changed, and I think Mets players have been super outspoken about him being a fantastic leader. So, what are you talking about? Who cares what a 22-year or 25-year-old did? That he wasn't the leader of the clubhouse.
No, if anything, Kipnis was more of a leader on that team when those teams were good and thriving. He was 27, 28, 29 years old. Lindor is a baby.
And they had Kluber. They had a handful of They had a handful of Santana was there. They had a handful of other guys that were like in that role. They didn't need Lindor to be in that role. Yeah. And do you think? Look at every other superstar leader, whatever. They weren't leaders their rookie year. Like they develop into leaders. That's what happens. They get big money. They're contract guys. They're staying for a while. They're leaders.
And Ibby, when you look at the Mets team right now, right, everybody always talks about the fact that, Alonso has captain vibes and Nimmo's now to the point where he's a leader. You have two leaders, the best kind of leaders you could possibly have at the head of your rotation. I know they're not pitching well in Scherzer and Verlander. You got guys at the back end. You don't think David Robertson is a leader in the bullpen? You don't think Adam Ottavino is a leader in the bullpen? You think that's why Max Scherzer is one of the player reps in baseball, and this guy's going to say that he's not a leader? Like, Ibby, I can't with that. I'm sorry.
That's
the
not
reason why, the reason why I don't like it so much, like when I hear things like this, like leadership and like, do I think that at times someone should, in a moment or a situation, like take control, like say something, maybe to spark someone? Sure, I can understand, but at the same time, like I think a lot of people think of professional baseball as if it's like high school. Like you got to have this fiery coach and this and that. You got to do this. It's like, these are grown-ass men playing a kid's game, making millions of dollars. Like they go out there and they do what they do, but you still think that there's this rah, like it's a different atmosphere that we're never going to understand or know what's going on because we're not in that clubhouse. So when I see, granted, it's a former major league player, but when I see another player talk about another clubhouse as if he knows what's going on, I think it's bullshit. I think it's misplaced, and I think it's a way to look. I'm not trying to throw shade at the show, saying, "Oh, if we say something a little controversial, we'll get a couple more likes, and a couple more retweets or whatever." But it kind of falls in line with what sports media is becoming, and it's like, we're going to say something a little bit outlandish. We know it's going to get some run. Let's double down on it. Let's say this. I know we kind of backtracked. I saw the tweet before. I don't have it off the top of my head or in front of me. He backtracked on before, basically saying, oh, I didn't mean this. And he was a young kid then. It wasn't expected of him. It's like, yeah, but you said what you said. Passive aggressively, you said what you said, and it came off like you were just being a dick and like a know-it-all, as if you know what's going on in that clubhouse, and you fucking don't.
No, don't. And I'm shocked that he didn't realize. Listen, every leadership in clubhouses is different. David Wright, everybody I assume can agree that he was an incredible leader for the team in the clubhouse, out of the clubhouse. Then you look at a team. Was it even Cleveland or Boston or whatever? Mike Napoli was there and they went on that run. Like Mike Napoli and David Wright were not running the same clubhouse.
Right.
Napoli was throwing ragers at his house and they were all getting doing that. Right.
Party at Naps. Yeah.
It's a different, you can't say, he's not a leader because he does things differently than this person did it. That's, everybody leads in their own way. And everybody has success doing it. Right.
Yeah.
Vibes are different.
That's where I think Kipnis needs to have a little bit more responsibility as somebody who's been in a major league clubhouse for as long as he's been in.
They all seemed like they had that dirtbag vibe and they loved it. That's a way different leadership than the Mets squad right now has, and the Yankees ever had, than any other team ever had.
Right.
John, I want to bring this comment to your attention. Then I got one more quick question for you before we get out of here.
Really?
Carlos saying Ibby, it's to Ibby, but also I want to bring it to you first, John. They also lack a manager, the Mets, who holds them accountable. That's where a leader is needed in that clubhouse. I would argue, and I have argued with Carlos, that Buck Showalter is certainly a manager that holds people accountable.
Yeah, I don't know why people assume that. Just because he comes out and is soft-spoken and handles himself like he handles himself in interviews post-game, that has nothing to do with what's being said in the clubhouse or what he expects in the clubhouse. No. He's handling stuff out there because that's his job to do it. He doesn't like doing it, but it's his job to talk to, the media and answer the questions. What do you think he's going to go out there? And even when they were good last year, he didn't put on these elaborate things and go into detail out players. They're doing their job. Good. That's what they do. Everybody's doing their job, but they're not doing their job. That's what he's always going to do. That has nothing to do with him in the clubhouse and what he's addressing with the players.
Winning and losing is what always dictates this conversation from fans. It's like last year they won 101 games, and the only thing that a lot of people were talking about was, it's great, we finally have a guy in the clubhouse who's holding people accountable, and we're keeping things clean, and we're not seeing the Mets in terms of like stupidity. All this stuff is going on. And now it's like, now they're losing. Like, this guy doesn't hold anybody accountable. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Like, what? It's the same thing. Like, nothing's changing. Yeah. They're not winning some ball games, but like I could say that's a Mets fan in general. That's just a fan in general, because winning and losing dictates the change in attitude for everybody.
And I've said it to like a bunch of people in the midst of Twitter arguments and stuff like that. And like, I guess it might make me sound like a little bit of a dick. I don't mean it to be dickish, but like, fans and players and like, they don't see the game the same way. Like, a lot of these guys don't. Fans are getting pissed off because a team might get smoked that day and the guys are out at a basketball playoff game. Like, what do you think they're going to do? Sit in bed and cry? Like, they don't see the game. Yes. They're not in the clubhouse throwing their stuff around and throwing tantrums. They get the uniforms off. Day's over. Like, we're on to the next.
I've said before, and I said this to John like a long time, because we had a similar conversation about that. And I said, I think back to the movie Fever Pitch, where they're so obsessed with the Red Sox, and then they go out after they lose the playoff game and they're drinking. Look, it's fucking Damon and Trot Nixon over there, and they're just eating. Like, I'm over here, I can't even eat or drink, and they're over there having a party. It's like, they're people. You don't want to see how bad
they'd be. They would be so bad at baseball if they processed that the way that a lot of the fans process games. They would never show up. People would be quitting and dropping and not shut. It would be impossible. They just don't do it. They it's just a different thought process behind it. It's not life or death every game. Tomorrow, that's their job. They're not riding on. They have a job to do. Pitching well, hitting well. That's their focus. Wins will come with that. If everybody's doing their job, wins will come.
And I'm sure a lot of people who have their regular 9 to 5s or whatever they do for a living, some days you just don't have it and you don't want to do it. Look, I teach. Some days I have it. Some days I don't have it. Okay. Yep. And I'm sure you guys are the same way with your jobs. It's like, everyone expects you to be 100 every single time, and it's not going to happen. Sometimes you lose games. Sometimes you lose games that you shouldn't lose. Yeah. But it is what it is. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
And in a stretch like this, the clubhouse is stressed. It's not like they forget about it. They're, you could even tell in the way the players are interacting in the field. There's a little more attention to it. Everybody wants to kick this, crap stretch and get on with it. but they're just not going to sit around and cry and waste their whole day. Like Buck's not going to come out and be like, this person should have done this. And what happens if he would? He's a terrible man. Like people would be on him about being a terrible manager, throwing players under the bus. Like, what do you want from the guy?
Right.
It's a tough stretch. Yeah. Sorry.
Keith saying, hey, I had a crap day at work on Wall Street. I better not go to that playoff game I have tickets for. That's the sentiment.
Yeah.
That's the sentiment. I use the baseball analogies at my job. Like when I go and I do comedy and like there's times I'm sleepy, I'm sluggish, and I just get through it. And maybe people really are enjoying it and they laughed and it was good. But I'll be the first person, like I won't admit it to the crowd at large, but somebody who I know well or another comic on the show, I'll say, hey, I didn't have my best fastball today. I know I was not firing. I was not quick. And I was just okay. I was just mediocre. But you know what? I got through it. Through it. I did my time. Now I get to go and have my free dinner and I got to get paid and I'm going to go home.
Exactly.
I don't wake up at night and think about, oh my God, I flubbed that one line on that joke. What am I going to do? Doesn't fucking matter.
No. And you know what happened if you did? You'd be fucked the next time you went out. It would just keep snowball. You'd be done. Yeah.
Absolutely. Keith also with this great comment, Mets fan plus masochist. That's so 100%. So spot on. John, thank you for giving us over an hour of your time. Really appreciate it. I do want to ask you one thing. I don't know how much people are going to be aware of some of this from following you on Twitter, but I just want to get your take on Matt Harvey deciding to retire. Because again, like I said at the beginning, you did a lot of work with him. And, you were talking him up and he had a really great WBC. And it seemed like somebody should give him at least a flyer, minor league deal. Could he pitch out of the bullpen? Something. And then all of a sudden he retires. So were you shocked? What was your thought process? Did you know anything about it as it was coming up?
I didn't know he was going to retire then. I didn't know retirement was really, he was coming off knee surgery. We were working together. He was driving from the city. He was training, he was doing what he had to do, rehabbing, doing his pitching training. So, he was working. He worked for the World Baseball Classic. He was excited about it, pitched well, and it's a new style of pitching for him. He's used to, rolling out of bed and chucking at 99 and just mowing people down. So, he had to learn that this is kind of where he's at now and how to pitch with it. I think that he really had the mindset of getting back to the big leagues or bust. So that might have been where, spring training kind of went. It wasn't. Had he stuck around and went to indie ball or played somewhere else, probably would have gotten a shot at some point with injuries, teams needs later in the season. Everybody changes, but I just don't think that, with the way he was coming off knee surgery, he felt fine, but his stuff wasn't where he was used to, that maybe he just felt like, it's time. Everybody hits that point. I hit it in a clubhouse after a game one day. I was just like, I think I'm good. Yeah. It just hits you, and that was it. I went in and I talked to our manager at the time, but I didn't talk to him about the decision really or what drove him to it. I could only imagine that at that point he was okay with his career.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I know I kind of said the question a certain way. Like I would never ask you to be like, "Oh, did you know? Could you tell us what he said?" I'd never ask you to do that.
I really didn't. I didn't know that. We didn't have a conversation about it leading up. Any work we did, he came in, did his stuff, and that was it. So no,
John,
I had no idea that it was coming.
I'm curious, like when you're working with Matt Harvey and dealing with all the stuff that he's gone through, like from like you said, like he's used to rolling out of bed and throwing 99, so he had to learn how to throw and be a different type of pitcher than what he's used to his entire life. Like when he was throwing and he was working, like having the thoracic outlet surgery and all that went along with that, like is that what like did it just sap everything that he was so used to? Like, did it just sap his arm that much and trying to learn? Like, I'm just curious on like how the work goes when you come off of something like. Now, granted, it was years ago, but still, it changed his outlook in the game. I'm curious.
It wasn't it wasn't just the surgery. It was surgery. Then he had the time off with the stuff that happened over in LA. Then he had knee surgery in October. So a lot of that
compiling.
A lot of things compile when I know again I tore my ACL on my front knee, and I just couldn't bend through my mechanics the same way. It changed, I changed a lot of stuff. It started leading to shoulder issues.
Compensating.
Things stem from other stuff. So thoracic outlet, he came back and he was still in the high 90s after that, with Cincinnati or Kansas City, wherever he was last few years. Cincinnati, KC, Baltimore. He was back up into the high 90s there. It's just a combination of, it could be age, it could be a lot of stuff, but the arm just slows down when the arm slows down. He was fortunate enough that he could still get it into the low 90s when he needed to, and work with his stuff so good, and it really was locating it beautifully that he was able to work with that.
Now, obviously, he's a different person. You're not in his body and all this stuff. But from what you saw, did you think that he could be a major league pitcher if he wanted to be, if the drive, the desire, all that stuff was there?
Yeah. Yep. And it was. He showed up, as I said, he drove from the city to throw indoors. The drive was there. The want to was there, and I think his stuff was there. It was just getting had he been invited to spring training, I think he would have been very successful out of the pen with somebody, or even as like, a spot start kind of guy and flip flop back and forth. But yeah, I think big league or bust was kind of his mindset with it. I know when he went overseas, he did think shortly about going back over and playing in Asia somewhere after the World Baseball Classic, but I'm not sure what came of that. That's more on his agent's side. But I was not shocked, I guess. Anybody could see it at that point in the career. If you're not getting, he wasn't with the team at the point. So I was like, okay, we'll see. He didn't necessarily want to do indie ball or anything like that. I just think that he was, ready.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a mental readiness for a lot of the guys. Some of you wake up and you're just like, I'm good. That was it.
Yeah.
That's
true,
literally
though.
it was after a game. It was after a game I didn't even do bad in. And I was just like, I'm good. That was, it was time to move on.
Yeah, I get it. I've talked to a lot of other athletes we have on this show, and they all say the same thing. You're like, it's regardless of performance, sometimes like, the game will tell you when you're done. And sometimes you're just like, nah, I'm just.
Yeah. I was very fortunate to kind of do it, but yeah, you just, to play baseball and to get there at the stadium at 12:30, 1 o'clock every day and not start the game until 7, you're stretching, you're doing all this stuff. It's a long day. People just think baseball guys show up before the game, stretch and throw, and that's it.
Right.
There's a lot, there's a full day that goes into it, and then you're not out of the stadium until 11:30. You got to want to
do it all
again
the next day.
You want to do it constantly, day after day after day. Be away from family, be away. So some guys love it. Some guys, listen. Again, if he was throwing 99 and he was on a big league roster, I'm sure 1,000% he'd be out there playing right now. He would not be retired. But everybody hits certain points that they're okay with it from where they are. They got to take life with it.
Yeah, no, listen, that's totally fair. Like I said, Keith, a couple more comments before we get out of here. Keith said, my sister had thoracic outlet surgery 7 years ago and still hasn't recovered. And she is no way even close to being a world-class athlete. I think that's something that people kind of lose sight of. Sometimes Chris Ferraro saying, great show today. Thank you. Appreciate that from everybody watching and tuning in. And Carlos saying, can we make Mincone a regular? We need a baby face on this show. We do love having you on, John. It was an absolute blast. I hope that you had fun, and we'd love to have you on again.
Absolutely, definitely did. Yeah, I'd love to be back on. Absolutely.
Awesome. Appreciate that very much. The
Another
Mets
verbal
game
contract.
The Mets game.
Another
That's two. That's two
really
verbal contracts.
That's 2 for 2. We got him. We tricked him. No. Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For everybody who's watching, like I said, this is Till Mets Do Us Part. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, turn notifications on. If you don't watch it now, you can watch it after the fact. And if you can't watch it at all, you can always listen starting tomorrow morning, wherever it is you get your podcast, on your way to school, work, while you're at the gym, while you're taking your dog for a walk, whatever it is. It's John Sapanaro, Matt Ibanez, and our guest this week, John Mincone. Till Mets Do Us Part. We will see you guys next week. LFG.